So we are thrilled to introduce this part of the programming of Making Waves, which was a part that we were thinking about precisely in the light of the fact that a certain number of happenings in Romania and in Hungary reminded us of periods when the relationship between culture and arts and politics were different from what we had known after the fall of communism. So there was this idea that maybe we don't content ourselves with just organizing the festival with the films, but we also try and organize a debate and a discussion, introducing the American audiences and the audiences here in New York to what is happening back home that obliged both me and Jakab, in our very specific case, to give up basically what we used to do as directors of cultural centers in our country and go independent or go to find another work, another job. The panel of this evening, because it's the National Day of Romania, is of course organized around the situation in Romania. And after you are going to see the movie, Mihai Chirilov, second co-founder of the Romanian Film Initiative, will take over. He's also the artistic director of Making Waves, and he'll moderate this panel discussion and introduce you to the panelists. But before that, I'd like to invite also Jakab to say a couple of words about our initiative to co-curate these two panels. And after Jakab will speak, I will introduce you to a major professional in Romania who is the DP of the film that you are going to see this evening, but who is also an actor in the film, Florin Mihăilescu. He made all this long way to come here, and he's one of our very, very special guests of the festival. As you know, the film that we are going to screen, Sequences, is by Alexandru Tatos, is a film that speaks specifically about the relationship between art and appearance and truth, and making things deviate from the truth by expressing them in different ways that make them address reality through the arts, but also the relationship between lie and political lie and the truth of the arts. So first, Jakab Orjos, and then Florin Mihăilescu introducing to you the film Sequences by Alexandru Tatos.
Good evening, everyone. Just real quick, I'm really thrilled to be here, being one of the guests of the Romanian Festival in my Hungarian capacity. So together with Corina, we decided to kind of like curate this experience somehow to use film and use art in general to frame history and politics. As you all very well know, history can surprise us, politics even more. So that's what we're going through in our respected countries, in Hungary and Romania too. So we thought that we're going to bring two major films, kind of historical films from Romania, from Hungary. You're going to see the Hungarian tomorrow, and then put together a panel who could discuss the trajectory of history in a good and a bad way, how we all exposed when we are exposed to history and politics, coping, or sometimes not being able to cope with it. So it's a lesson. It's an ever-going lesson, as we all know. So we are going through right now. We're going through a fairly bitter lesson, both in our countries. So we thought that it's going to be a great opportunity to share our thoughts and bringing our wonderful panelists from Romania and Hungary to help us to discuss this. Thanks again for coming, and thanks, Corina, for inviting us Hungarians to be part of this.
Thank you, Jakab.
Bună seara!
Good evening.
Engleza mea este foarte ruginită și cum nu-mi place să fac lucrurile la jumătate, am rugat-o pe Corina să mă traducă.
My English is a bit rusty, so because I don't like to do things at half, I asked Corina to translate.
Am venit de la București acum o oră, mai puțin de o oră, și vin cu o impresie foarte puternică din industria filmului românesc. Toată lumea vorbește mai mult decât în ceilalți ani despre festivalul de la New York.
I just arrived from Bucharest 1 hour ago, and I am coming with this kind of very strong impression that I got when I arrived, when I left Bucharest. Everyone speaks about the Romanian Film Festival in New York much more than they used to years ago when it was officially organized.
M-am întâlnit pe aeroport la București cu Andrei Zincă, este un regizor român, de origine română, care lucrează însă pe coasta de vest, și mă spune: tu ai auzit ce se întâmplă la New York? Azi dimineață la ora 4.
This morning at 4 o'clock, when I arrived at the airport, I met a friend of mine who lives in America. He's Romanian. He's a Romanian director, film director called Andrei Zincă. He lives in Los Angeles. And he asked me, did you hear what's going on in New York?
Am avut ocazia să verific lucrul ăsta imediat, au plonjat peste mine la aeroport, totul era organizat și m-au aruncat în scenă, n-am avut timp să mă schimb, să mă vorbieresc, soția mea mi-a pregătit haine, să fiu prezent în fața dumneavoastră elegant, e imposibil cu fetele astea, este o vâltoare.
Well, this, of course, I realized that there was something going on here because as soon as I arrived, the girls took me over and they brought me here, and I couldn't even change. They didn't allow me to change. They said, you should be cool. You should look cool. So my wife had prepared, of course, a costume for me, but I couldn't change. These girls are really doing things, these girls and boys, we have to say, are doing things in a way that you can't cope with it.
Trecând la lucruri serioase, felicitări Corina, felicitări Oana, felicitări Chiri, felicitări fetelor. Este extraordinar ce faceți aici.
Well, now speaking about serious things, congratulations to all of you, Corina, Oana, Mihai, Chirilov, and everyone, Elvira, for doing this. It's extraordinary what you achieved here.
Și dintre lucrurile extraordinare pe care le-ați făcut este acela că v-ați gândit la Tatos. Și ați făcut foarte bine că v-ați gândit la el.
And one of the most extraordinary things that you did is that you thought about programming Alexandru Tatos. It is really very important. You thought to program this film of Alexandru Tatos.
În primul rând pentru că Tatos este reprezentativ pentru generația anilor 70. Este unul dintre cei mai importanți. Timpul a probat lucrul ăsta. Timpul dovedește că în anul 2013, în curând, Tatos este cel mai vizibil din generația anilor 70.
First of all, because he's a director of the 70s, and time proved that he is really the most important of the 70s. Will be in 2013, and Tatos remains the most important film director of the 70s in Romania.
Este important pentru că a făcut un anume lucru cu mai multă grație și cu mai multă abilitate decât toți ceilalți colegi de generația ei lui. Și anume, acela al jocului între serviciul politic, serviciul ideologic și tema cu adevărat pe care dorea să o trateze în filmele sale.
He is so important because he really succeeded to play this very edgy, very dangerous role between a sort of apparent way in which he had to comply with the requests of censorship and the regime, and at the same time he succeeded making pass what he wanted to speak about artistically.
Fără să facă neapărat filme cu cheie. Pentru că ce caracterizează acea epocă în toate țările socialiste este realizarea filmelor cu cheie. Tatos nu face filme încriptate. Face filme pe care le poate înțelege toată lumea.
And he succeeded this without doing this kind of encrypted films where you needed the key and then you understood all the metaphor behind. He really made films that everyone understood, but in the same time these films were done in a way that the message passed through.
El spune anumite lucruri în mai multe planuri suprapuse, lăsând undeva într-un plan subteran, de fapt, tema pe care vrea să o audă comanditarul filmului, partidul.
He is doing these films in all these kind of different levels, and different narratives are come together, are fusioning in all his films. But of course, that below all that was the theme that he was always supposed to make pass, and this theme was the party, the Communist Party, that wanted always to listen to, and he always had this excuse that basically he spoke about the things he should have spoken, but in the same time he spoke in a way in which the contrary of this message was transmitted.
Și e important să spunem lucrul ăsta, primul regizor care a probat cu excelență, de la care am învățat de fapt toți în succesiune, în primul rând Tatos, este Liviu Ciulei în Valurile Dunării.
Of course, the first director who did it is Liviu Ciulei, another major theater and film, Romanian theater and film director, whose retrospective we have presented last year here at Lincoln Center.
El vrea să spună o poveste de dragoste, de fapt, și o ambalează în povestea luptei dintre nemți și comuniștii din România.
He wants to tell about love. He wants to tell a love story, but in fact he puts all this in a package of the fight between communists and Nazis in Romania.
Și unul și altul și alți regizori după aceea aleg calea realistă a filmului.
Both Ciulei and Tatos have chosen this realistic way for making film.
Sigur, există și calea alegoriei, calea metaforei, dar nu despre asta discutăm acum, pentru că la Tatos această structură nu a existat.
Of course, there is the allegoric way that one can choose, but this is not the way that Tatos decided to make film.
Trebuie să spun câteva cuvinte despre secvențe, mai ales pentru publicul american care nu va înțelege câteva din subtilitățile traiului din România.
Now, just very brief words about sequences, because there are two scenes that maybe the American public will not understand regarding the way that the reality looked like at the time when the film was made.
Chiar în prima secvență o să vedeți un personaj care vorbește la telefonul public. N-aveți grijă, nu povestesc filmul.
I won't tell the story of the film. I'm not disclosing how the film is.
Chiar în prima secvență din film, un personaj vorbește la telefon și spune soției: da, mami, am cumpărat și brânză și măsline, da, mami, am luat de toate, vin acum acasă. În România nu se găsea nimic de mâncare.
In the first sequence, one of the characters is saying, "Yes, mother, I bought everything you said. I bought cheese and olives and bread and everything." And this is a scene that is the contrary what was really happening in Romania, because basically there was nothing to eat, and you can't buy anything to eat at that time.
De fapt, în secvența aceasta, Tatos introduce cheia filmului. Îi dă spectatorului codul în care va trebui să vadă filmul al jocului dintre aparență și realitate.
This is the moment when he introduces this idea, the whole film, that the film is going to be regarded as a continuous play between appearance and reality.
Păi vă doresc vizionare plăcută.
I just wish you enjoy the screening and you enjoy this great film. Thank you, Florin, and enjoy the screening.
Okay, thanks for staying. My name is Mihai Chirilov. I'm the artistic director of Making Waves, the Romanian Film Festival in New York. We have around like 45 minutes for this panel. We ran a bit late, and we have another screening afterwards. So we'll try to make it as fast and effective as possible. We have plenty of things to talk about. We have some things to watch here. Some visual. We'll have some visuals. You know the theme of this panel, which is creative freedom through cinema. It's the first part of the special program co-curated by Corina Șutău and Jaca Borsos. Today's panel is dedicated to Romania and to the Romanian realities from a cultural and political point of view. But before entering this topic, I would like to ask my panelists, my fellow panelists here, which I'm going to introduce pretty soon, what do they think about the film and how do they see the connection between what you've just seen? This is a film from the 80s, from Romania under communism, and the topic of our discussion. So from my right, we have from Hungary, actually, Eszter Babarczy, who's a historian specialized in cultural, wait a second, I have contemporary culture. She's a journalist, she's a columnist, she's an essayist, she's a teacher, and of course she's very involved politically. To my left, I have Dan Perjovschi, who's a very famous Romanian visual artist, who's also a journalist and who's also very involved socially and politically. Further, we have Ada Solomon, which you've probably met last night because yesterday she had 2 films in show here. She's one of the strongest Romanian female producers, and she has 2 films in this year's program, Best Intentions and Everybody in Our Family. But she has more projects in the pipeline. And last but not least, we have Mona Nicoara, who's a Romanian living in Brooklyn, who's a filmmaker, who worked in production, but with a very solid background in human rights. Am I correct? Yeah. Okay. So, like I said, you've seen a classic film from the 80s, which made the top 10 of the best Romanian films ever made. It's a poll that was made like 5 years ago. So it was among the top 10 films chosen by 40 Romanian critics. Alexandru Tatos is no longer with us. He died a bit after the Romanian Revolution, so right when Romania entered democracy. This film and pretty much most of Alexandru Tatos' films were affected by censorship, and this thing really consumed him. Also, while he was making this film, and of course you've seen it, and it's clear to understand why he had all these problems with the censorship. And this is a great film, I think, in my opinion. And then I will ask all of you, because of this fantastic device that the film has, a film within a film in film. It says that because of that, I found it in a way very political, but not that in your face from this point of view, because in order to undermine the power of a camera, in general in a movie, because normally a camera should record the truth, right, the real, but somehow because there are so many people involved, actors, editing, whatever, you can divert the truth, you can manipulate, you can distort the reality. The only way to actually to undermine the power of a camera is to put in front of it another camera, and this is what happens in film because of this device. And I think through this, the consequences, the results are that actually the director and the film exposes shows how the power found in those times the perfect ally in image, and how they were using image as propaganda. From my point of view, it's a very subtle denunce. I don't know, how do you say, denouncement? Denouncement of power. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're free to throw the first stone. What do you think about this film, and how do you see the connection between creative film? Of course, nowadays we can no longer talk about the limits of creative freedom like it was the case for Alexandru Tatos in those times, because those times were like very heavily political influenced, and it was a heavy censorship. Now we live in democracy, so normally we no longer have that type of censorship. What kind of censorship do you have? And in this respect, how relevant, still relevant, is this film for you, and how political, and why? Mona.
I mean, it's quite relevant and it's quite present, and one of the things that was extremely surprising is actually how direct it is. This is how direct it is about the relationship between propaganda and reality, and the relationship between the foreground and the background. I think it's quite atypical of that period in that directness. And I would love to see what was left in the cutting room and what was cut out by censorship, because it's very hard to imagine something that is much more direct than that, or much more of a problem than what you see on screen. It could very easily be made today.
Eszter?
Well, thank you so much for having invited me, and this was the first time I've seen this film, and I am blown away. It's amazing. That was just the first thing I wanted to say, and the second is that interestingly, what I found most typical of our post-socialist and socialist societies is the continuity of an abuse of power on every level, so that you can abuse your power as an actor pretending to be someone else. You can abuse your power as a director, and where the end of the food chain or the bottom of the food chain, those two extras who actually suffered and killed each other, where the real history is, they are deeply suppressed histories by these layers of petty power plays. People stealing, people threatening others to reveal that they were stealing. And this is very much the 80s, the pettiness, the abuse of power, and the suppressed memories of tragedies that happened only one decade before that. So, and I found that the film conceit, I found that very even postmodern. I thought that was so very contemporary that it hit me. I mean, I don't think we had films like that in the early 80s in Hungary.
Interesting, yeah. Dan, have you seen the film before? You've seen it tonight for the first time?
Yeah, yes. And I was thinking about 3 points. One, because I laugh, probably like you.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
What makes a tragedy funny? That's very interesting, because you have this instinct and you laugh, and actually what you're looking is very, very sad and very tragic. That's one. And second, because I was also, as an artist, facing censorship, and probably for the people who don't know, censorship is not a unitary block. They give you a list what not to do. They don't give you any list. So you don't know what not to do. So it's a very kind of ambiguous relation within you and the power, because you don't know exactly what the power wants from you. So you don't know when you shot this film if it's possible to show it or not until the end, right? So they let you in this limbo where things can be shut down, erased from history, never hear again, or you can screen it. And I remember very well, and this is not exactly related to the film, but I saw blow up of Antonioni in 3 different Romanian cities in 3 different versions. Because there was 3 different censorship local committees. And one of the last, like you said, Eszter, it's it's very nice when you see something nice. It's very good when you see something which is, if it's made, I don't know exactly the year when it is made.
It's made in 82.
82, so it's like still very powerful and very actual, right? And maybe a lot of the people, my colleagues and younger artists, they have no idea what censorship is, right? So maybe they, even you, maybe you cannot exactly fix it. How tough and how important it is to say something in a society where you can't say something, right? So all this kind of history in histories and all this kind of, they were very dangerous stuff, speaking about communism. I found it really interesting, yeah, really.
Speaking just like a small anecdote, because I think we've seen that and it's written in our brochure, but this is one of the few Romanian films that exist in the private collection of the Museum of Modern Art here. And the story is that, okay, the film was made in 82, but somehow, you know, in that time, it traveled to New York and it was shown in the New Film New Directors. You know, back then, the power wanted to prove that to people here that they are okay with a film like this, you know. Whereas this film in Romania was rarely seen. You know, I've seen this film in Romania, I think the 4th or the 5th day after the revolution, on a bit after the Christmas '89 on television. That's how I discovered this film. So the film traveled back then to New York to prove how liberal, you know, Romania under communism in the 80s was. And of course, the director was very happy. He said all this in a journal. It was a very strong book. He published. I read only excerpts. I think Ada read the whole thing. And he says in this journal, and this is a story that got confirmed a few days ago when I talked to a person from MoMA saying that I remember the time. I remember when the film was shown here, and I remember talking to Alexandru Tatos, who was imploring us not to send the film back to Romania because it's going to be destroyed. So that's how, okay, the film was embraced by the curators of the museum, and like that they didn't have to send it back and then acquire it. You know, so the film stayed here.
That's how you save films. You just ask MoMA to buy them.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, for me it's very interesting because it's the first time that I see the film. I mean, tonight it's like I think the fourth time that I'm seeing this film. But tonight was the first time when I saw the film, thinking of the fact that Radu Jude several times told me that The Happiest Girl in the World, somehow it's an homage to Alexandru Tatos and specifically to sequences. And it was the first time that I watched the film having this in mind. And it's not really the topic of the discussion, but speaking about censorship, proportion gardée, of course, the danger and what means, I think that in fact, the consumerism censorship is just another kind of censorship. Because the films that we are doing as artists, really like gourmet cinema again, not fast food cinema, not consumer cinema, are films that have to shape themselves in order to be able to travel, to be exposed, to find its public. They risk to die by not being exposed as much as a film like this, with the exception that they are not putting in danger the life of the author. That's the difference. But
just
in the same
livelihood.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The artistic life, not the physical existence of the artist. I mean, I'm not minimizing the censorship during the communism, but I think things are somehow similar and as dangerous in terms of the other thing that I think that it's very, very impressive and important. It's the role of the artist as
creating awareness through emotions. And this is something that should be supported. This is something that should be helped, and let the voice be heard, and let the pieces travel with the vision of the artist, with the form, with the emotions that he's proposing or he's putting into the objects, into the work of the artist. But yeah, this was the most powerful thing for me tonight. How do I call it? Balance in between these two kinds of censorship.
Can I have a question to you?
Yeah. To who? To all?
To all of you from Romania, yes, because I always thought that under socialism, which was like far from being as tough as it had been under Ceausescu. I mean, in Hungary, it was a different matter. But I always felt that it was like a pot with the lid on, an incredible pressure inside, which made every statement an explosion. So the audiences were like tuned to look for clues, messages, symbols. And what I feel now, just coming back to your point of consumerism and stuff, that the lid is off. There is no pressure. There is no audience that looks for the message that they really want to hear about truth, the kind of truth they experience, to, you know, somehow go against the manipulation that they feel as an atrocity committed against them. And what I feel now is that we are still being manipulated, but people do not really care. I mean, self-censorship is still going on. Self-censorship in terms of political censorship, but people don't care. I don't know how you see the situation in Romania.
I think the ones who might have experienced that should say, in their area of activity, as a producer, as a filmmaker, as a visual artist.
I mean, in general, they don't care. Nobody cares. I mean,
but they used
wherever,
to.
take any society, nobody cares.
But would
like
you say that they did care before the revolution?
I mean, when it was presented, this film, it was about the code and the key. So of course, when you live in a country and there's no milk, and some actor come on the stage and say milk, everybody woo in the audience, right? So establish a kind of discussion, but maybe it's not real, you know? Because I think one of the biggest pain in Romanian production, culturally, literary, theater, it was that they got hooked in this allusive language. They didn't know to tell a story until this young generation show up and tell you a story, poof, directly. You know, they are probably amazing. Sorry?
Use the microphone.
No, I'm saying that was not, in my opinion, that was the idea, that it was very complicated to say a story straight, right? So, and it was this kind of coding who hook audience, and of course, there was an audience, because there was nothing else to do.
Well, yeah,
Right?
that's a key difference, actually, because we were much more receptive as audiences before 1989, because there was so little that we got. And this is sort of ties into Ada's point about how much more of an offer, of a cultural offer, theoretically there is in terms of entertainment. How much audiences actually, that makes audiences care less and be a lot less receptive. And in the meanwhile, the lid is coming slowly, sometimes fairly rapidly, as it happened this summer in Romania, back. Yeah. But the audience is no longer there.
The audience have milk.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Okay, before we go into, because there are already so many paths, open, I will invite Dan Perjovschi to, because we are at a film festival and we should deal with images as well, with visuals, and Dan is also very good, not only with words, but with images. Dan, if you can
No, I just
make
prepare,
us...
prepare some kind of visual images, because we were supposed to talk about the actual condition of creativity and art and culture in Romania right now, or in general. So I prepare a PowerPoint. Maybe you should also go.
We'll move there. And while you prepare that, Dan, I'll just briefly summarize. You all know that this film festival, the Making Film Festival, is organized starting with this year by a completely new entity, totally private, called Romanian Film Initiative. Not like in the previous 6 years when the festival was organized by the state-funded Romanian Cultural Institute, run for 6 years here in New York by Corina Șută, who's now co-founder of Romanian Film Initiative. You all know, I had some quotes from the New York Times, from Wall Street Journal, from 2 or 3 days ago. It will take too much time now to read them. You can find them on the internet, and I think we were pretty explicit at our opening in saying why this festival had to go independent, and why did we choose this path, because of the political changes this summer in Romania, and because of the new policy of the newly restored, let's say, the Cultural Institute. A project like that is no longer a priority or a project desired by the new Romanian Cultural Institute, who's going to operate here, who declared in one of their website manifestos that they prefer to go back to more. I mean, they want to go back to a more traditional way of promoting, more official way to promoting arts and culture, and claiming pretty much that everything that happened here in the last 6 years was highly negative from this point of view of promotion, arts, and endorsing, the idea of belonging, of identity and belonging to the Romanians, especially for the Romanians living here. I don't know how many Romanians are in the audience, and I don't know how did they lose their sense of identity by coming this year at this festival, watching these Romanian films, who are more or less accused that they distort and damage the image of Romania. Okay, so now, Dan, I try to put everything in the
let's destroy
contemporary.
More.
Yeah, let's distort more.
Yes, destroy more. So it's like absolutely by coincidence, because I didn't know when Alexandru Tatos' film was made. This is a shot in like mid-80s of Europe, and what you see, like the black hole near the Black Sea, that's my country. So it was like the time when I grew up and I made myself as an artist, and a lot of creators were building up and producing and doing art. This was the reality, and like this. So, like basic things missing. So imagine that you are in a socialistic country. They are telling you about representing reality, but you cannot show it. So you can't show that, right? So you had to invent either metaphor, or like in the film you just saw, a story in a story in a story, right? So and while this situation was there, so while you have this reality which you cannot show, then the dictator, so the power, build its reality. That's the palace of the dictator, which is like overlooking the contemporary Romanian. That's in Bucharest. It's the largest, second largest building after the Pentagon. So this is the heritage, right? And this heritage, that situation you also saw in the movie, that was changed in 1989, and it was changed by people. So the last domino falling from the communist country was Romania. And the guy who was once seen as the, you know, the progressive leader in the east of Europe. So it's the only leader in Eastern Europe who got executed. That tell you that the reality we are coming from were not nice, was really bloody. That kind of explained probably the language yesterday in the movie, and all this kind of very, very strong violence you can find in Romanian films. So everything then, at the beginning of the 90s, everything, every millimeter of advancements in democracy was made with human bodies on the street by people, right? And then the new reality came, the history who was repressed was possible to say, so the new sculpture and the new hero, no, the old heroes repressed and put at index came back, but they came back with a price. So it's a new sculpture. It's the sculpture who 50 years of communists forbid to put. This is actually a leader, political leader from between Second World Wars. But it's projected on the consumism, iconic images we just spoke. So this is the story of the last 20 years, right? From the black and white political ideology to the colored consumist ideology. And from the queuing for food to the what's left after you eat it. And the symbol of dictatorship, the building, now it's the symbol of democracy because the parliament moved in. Okay, and the biggest show on earth, right? John Bon Jovi. So every rock band from the Western world I assimilate with freedom, when for me it was impossible to access it, come now and collect this image. It's a fantastic background, right? Good. So my country plugged in. We are online. Skyscraper pop up every corner. And the women body on the street and the men body on the street who made histories at the beginning of the 90s are now advertising. So we are like a normal country. So, like normal country do, 1% have the money, the rest stay with the essays. And the logic in capitalism, right? So you have to move global. You have to become a global vampire in order to survive. And and speaking about China, right? So this is the construction we are in now. And the construction who got hit by the crisis. So you can scare your kids dressing as a bank director. And the first measure is to cut the budget, right? That's the way. And it's cutting usually in education and culture. Therefore, you have to train people that they should settle for less. Like you can educate homeless. Less is good. And less means also giving up some of your individual right just to feel more protected. Therefore, if you are an artist right now and you can represent reality, you can say about it, right? So you can go, you can be part of history now. You can go out there and be part of it. So that's what happened for the Romanian creators. You have this heritage and you have the new stuff, and you are caught in between. I lived in a communist country. I never learned Marxism. So if in the 90s we spoke about freedom, now when we meet we speak about money. So freedom become like a lifestyle. And because of this actual power, which you just mentioned, they mentioned in the discussion here, who try to grab everything. So you are free to criticize as an artist, right? And you always dream this, and that's the status right now. You have to be out of your context in order to stay in the context. That's always the dream of the creator, to become an international artist. So then you can become back a national one. And this is the last statement, you know. Actually, we are not so exhausted. Back to work.
That was part.
Back to work.
So less is home, huh? Perfect.
Talking about being exhausted, that was, and to go straight into our talk about creative freedom, were you, I mean, you, let's say, in Romania lately, exhausted because how hard you had to fight to preserve your creative freedom in your area of activity? And when was it threatened like the most in what you are doing?
Okay, no, but I would pick rather on this. Less is home, and being a homeless. You know, because in fact we became, in order to be able to survive and to really express ourselves. We, at least us in the cinema. I'm not referring to the rest of the artists because I don't know that well the reality of producing works. So in the Romanian cinema, we need to become nomads and homeless and to travel and to be and to establish a network and to be supported by curators. And I think this is a crucial element in the existence of the independent cinema, in the existence and dissemination of cinema that is coming from small circulation languages. It's a huge problem, and it is a problem. There is an audience, there are people that want, but they have to have the awareness about it. And the ones that are really facilitating this are the curators, the programmers, the people that are really digging for all these precious things, together with the filmmakers and some other people that are considered prosecutors, these guys, the producers, that are following a dream. They are not really making money, but they are building together. So the threat for us, it's most on this opposition with a consumer world and the way that cinema is regarded as a consumer good, and the need to be supported financially at the end of the day to exist.
By whom?
By the public bodies, by the private bodies, by the society. And yeah, because as I was saying in the beginning, I think what cinema is giving, and it's a very effective tool, is awareness on a situation, on an idea, on an universe, no matter what. So this kind of access should be supported by, again, public institutions, and the first way for me to not being anymore nomada is to have my country really supporting us and just, to feel comfortable at home and not to be anymore a homeless, traveling around Europe and the world and just being a citizen of the world.
And how would you fight actually all this? Because, I mean, just going back to 6 months ago when everything bad happened in Romania from a political point of view, and then with all those extremely cruel side effects towards what you are doing, Mona. I mean, how do you fight this? Because obviously, of course, it's hard, as you said, to raise money, to find the proper exposure and everything. But I think what happened now, after 20-something years after the revolution, living in a democratic country, and especially with a fabulous track record that, okay, going back to the cinema, because we are at the film festival, that the Romanian cinema has, one might say from the distance that...
What's the problem?
What's the problem? I mean, you make the whole country proud. You put Romania not on the movie map, on the map internationally. Somehow your problems are even worse than before. Do you think they can go even lower than that? What do you do? What do you all do actually in this very specific context? Because everything that happened this summer happened fast.
Yeah.
An institution like the Romanian Cultural Institute here that took time to build and to engage partnership with all the prestigious institutions in US, practically got compromised overnight in the eyes of the most of the American prestigious institutions.
It happened very, very quickly, but very effectively, because there was fertile ground, in a way, that received these changes very easily. Romanian cinema was never very, very popular at home and was never very popular with the authorities, because there was constantly this idea that cinema should somehow act as a tourism ad for Romania and representing any kind of reality that made you think a little bit too much, that made you question the culture and the place that you came from was not desirable. And what happened this summer was the changes in cultural policy just basically allowed that sentiment to become institutionalized and to become expressed into in a manner that's institutional. And already there's been, Tudor Giugiu circulated an email that he received from a festival that was being organized by the Romanian government somewhere that said, we'd like to have some films, but those films that, we'd like to have films that don't present a negative image of Romania. And then, just to make sure, it's the organizer of a festival that was paid for was Romanian government money that was presenting Romanian films in Cuba, I believe it was. I don't. The
like
name
a ghost
is not
organizer.
familiar
I mean,
at all. I have no idea who this person is, but this person decided to take it upon themselves to actually make clear what a negative image meant, just in case people didn't get it. And was drunks, no vulgar language, no gypsies, and I think there was one other thing in there, but people have adopted, I'm sure, this is not, the official language is much more vague than that, but the interpretation is very, very, very quick to come in all of those that apply the policies, and I think it's only gonna get worse.
So what happens this summer in Romania happens in Hungary like 1 year ago or something, 1.5? Like when the new political power came on, right? And they think the way culture is have to change, and we have to inject more national kind of representation, or
Yeah, absolutely, like an essentialist 1,000-year Hungary, blah 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 blah.
and no
blah.
gypsy too, right?
No, gypsies. Oh, actually, we do have gypsies, but then the government, I mean, in films, and it's the same story that they have to take the international festival tour, so that the director can feel somehow protected. It's not that the film is not going to be shown, or not, it's not going to be on television, but he feels protected at home.
Yeah, and even there, what happened
yeah.
in Berlin earlier?
Yeah, exactly, that's what I mean.
This year was a film that had a Roma theme and dealt with a really horrific series of murders of Roma by extremists in Hungary, was met at the press conference in Berlin with a press release from the government, a statement from the government that was basically taking distance from the film and dismissing what it was showing as a work of art that is actually not accurate, is not an accurate representation of what's going on in Hungary.
So what happens in the last years, at least in Romania, it was not that the suddenly government was so tolerant and understanding, and the view of the government coincide with the view of the artist. They just simply did not care. The money was there. When you have the money and the things start to go, you don't, you have the freedom of speech. When the money is going down, in general, then they start to worry, right? But I think it's something which is a good news for us. Because I think when we thought that the freedom of speech is achieved. So we can say whatever, so the only thing we have to worry is Ada making the money, and then we can produce the film. Now, suddenly you realize, and that's a major shock after 23rd year, that nothing is achieved. And the limits of what you can say or not, or the division, again, between the reality and what you can say about reality is also starting to have a gap, right? So that's kind of interesting. Maybe that will inject more content in what we do. Or we should be aware again about these facts, because we thought this is there forever. It's like natural. I can come and say whatever I think about. Now I suddenly hear from an official body of my country that I should watch my language. And my drawings, probably. I mean,
do you feel threatened existentially?
No.
No, I mean, not in terms of getting hurt, but like being fired, that kind of stuff. From the okay,
You're
because
talking to independents
that's exactly
now.
what
We're
happened,
not a good
right?
measure.
Fire from history or something, yeah. Just wait. No, I think we had this national, international. We, as a visual artist, I always thought that it's international. That's why I made this not exotic. I mean, I'm just like everybody else. I'm just exhausted. I'm not just, So I don't have an extra. I don't have to have an extra feature. But apparently now, I mean, what Mona said, it's in a official political draft from the new Romanian Cultural Institute that they have to somehow watch over the misinterpretation of the image of the country. So they have a mission which was not there until now. Until now, they just administrate it, produce projects, create platform, make the link, fantastic cultural things. Now they have this mission that they have somehow to, it's a very political mission. If it's an article somewhere and it's not, they consider it's not exactly what they should answer to the publication here. So that's a different story. I don't feel threatened, and I think the situation on the ground changed so much from the Tatos film where everybody was employed by the state. Now the state is not so powerful any longer. It's like you have alternatives, including to just leave your country. Simple as that.
If that is an alternative.
It is an alternative, it's not a solution.
Yeah.
But actually, we are here in front of you with our achievements and with all, again, the modesty. The situation is not the same for us as for the newcomers. I mean, we are not threatened because we do have our accomplishments, we do have our, somehow system of survival, if you want to call it like this, and the possibility to travel and without the public support and so on. But for the newcomers, for the new talent, it is a very serious threat. And there is a very serious problem in terms of evolution of the cultural milieu. How can I say it? Environment. Yeah. Because we need this permanent, fresh, we need to make waves permanently in order to progress and to achieve. And we need to be provoked, also the one that are at an adult level, let's say. And they are not supported anymore, and they cannot break through anymore. At least for the Romanian cinema, for the Romanian new cinema, there were a couple of things that really unchained, and they were crucial for a part of the talent, a part of the artists, amazing artists that did it. It was the changement of the law, of the cinema law, and the very first possibility to really very democratically access public money in a contest with some points that wasn't perfect, but it was functional. That was one thing. The other thing was...
we have 3 more minutes, Ada.
Okay, I'm sorry. The other thing was the apparition, the creation of Transylvania Film Festival as a movement, not as a festival, but as a movement, as a program of the critics and the critics and industry supporting the artists and promoting them. Saying promoting, the third thing was the Romanian Cultural Institute as it was during Horia Roman Patapievici. And I think, yeah, that's what I...
And last but not least, the festival Making Waves.
Yes.
Yeah, well, no, I'm talking about the things that generated.
Last resort.
No, the things that generated.
No, but actually this festival is a model of how you can actually survive outside the system, because without state support, you need to figure out different ways to function. Unfortunately, we come from countries that don't have a lot of wealth and don't have a lot of tradition of private support for the arts. But there's something that got created, sort of to end on a positive note, if we can. There's something that got created during all these changes, at least in Romania, maybe not so much in Hungary. There's a sense of solidarity and a sense of sticking together to try to save something. And I think the crowdfunding campaign that this festival did actually is a very specific, very concrete representation of that. And I hope it's sustainable.
We don't have time to take questions from the audience, but we have a party for the Romania National Day, so we can continue talking about because there were so many aspects left uncovered in this panel. Thanks for staying. Thanks for coming to the film. Please come tomorrow to see the and to be part of the second part of this special program. I thank again, in the name of the Romanian Film Initiative, the Trust for Mutual Understanding, who supported this special program and the festival, Making Waves to exist. And please join us tomorrow for the Hungarian side of this double bill. We're gonna have a screening with a movie also from '82 by Peter Gotthard, Time Stands Still, at 1 o'clock, followed by a panel moderated by my fellow in the festival board, Scott Foundas. So now please let's sing the national anthem and have a drink. Thank you.